all of my English thinking life. I have to put it like that because, seriously, the German translations are atrocious. So, understanding the actual English thing was kind of necessary to appreciate it. And I want to show you something that I picked up at my last holiday in England when I went to Bristol, Bath and Cornwall. And I found these wonderful things in Bath in the Jane Austen Museum. And have a look at this. This is like, it's every book lover's dream, I think. So this is their Pride and Prejudice version. And it's like, it's got the silver cut and it's got this like really wonderful cover, and it also has really, really thick pages. I think it's almost too beautiful to read, but then it also like sits very nicely in your hand and it's weighted right. Same goes for Persuasion, which has a gold cut, and Sense and Sensibility, which also has the gold cut thingy happening. I was told that they are only sold in England. I'm not sure if this is true or if you can get them anywhere else. I also think they are planning on making more of these, so these are the ones that were available in May, and I really hope that the next time I'm over I'll be able to get the one for Emma, at least, if not also for Northanger Abbey. I'm not a big fan of Mansfield Park, admittedly. So, the interesting thing about Jane Austen in a way is that if you say Jane Austen, everybody will be like, yeah, Pride and Prejudice. Reason being, perhaps, that Pride and Prejudice is the one that was made into extremely great movies, the one that sparked everybody's interest in a way. I have to admit that the 2005 movie was what sparked my interest in a way. But thinking about it a bit more, I think a lot of people are mistaken about it when they say like, ooh, it's such a romantic story and Mr. Darcy is such a dear. I don't really like Mr. Darcy as much as I like some of the other heroes in Jane Austen's books. I mean, he's okay, he's not an ass, but not being an ass is not really the best thing to be on this planet. I have issues with his romance with Lizzie for several reasons. One of them being that her interest in him only starts when she sees his huge ass estate. Before that, she's like completely averse to the idea of marrying him. And afterwards, she's suddenly like, ooh, that could be an idea. Well, he also does this really lovely thing about Lydia and Mr. Wickham, but her first thought about, oh, I could have been mistress of all this, happens when she sees his huge ass estate and realizes how much wealth he has, which is okay-ish for the times, because she comes from quite a low standard family. They don't have that much money and they need to marry their children off to wealthy people. But on the other hand, I don't really know if that is like how your love story should start, with like, oh my god, he's got a huge estate. On the other hand, Mr. Darcy, it always struck me as weird that he is like into Lizzie quite early on, based on her looks. It's not like he admires her fierceness, it's not that he admires her character. That's things that happen later on, but in the beginning it's just like her lovely eyes, or yeah, it's, well, it's not enough for me. It's not enough to like give me this really fuzzy, warm feeling that one should have about a romance in a way. Romance-wise, Jane Austen actually did a few other constellations that I like much better. For example, in Emma, you've got Emma and Mr. Knightley, who have known each other for quite a long time, and they are the classical friendship to lovers trope. And I really like this dynamic behind it, with Mr. Knightley being a little bit of a guardian for her, somehow teaching her a little bit about life, but then on the other hand, her thinking she's super independent and only realizing that Mr. Knightley would be something for her when her best friend suddenly falls for him and shows interest in him, and she's like, actually I wanted that guy for myself. Finally, you've got Persuasion, which is my personal favorite because it has this long story of longing in it, and it has this wonderful letter that Captain Wentworth writes to Anne in the end about who loves longest, men or women. And it's this really interesting story because it could happen today, really. She falls for him, he is deemed unworthy by her friends and family because he doesn't have a huge estate and because he doesn't have a lot of money. And because she's young and, well, she's still almost a child, she lets them tell her what to do. And she steps away from this engagement and she steps away from him, and then she realizes that she has made a huge mistake. And every single time I read this book and every single time I watch any of the movies that were made from it, I'm still happy for them that they in the end get what they always wanted, and that in the end they are allowed to be together. So yeah, these are absolutely amazing, I love them. Personal side note, I was thinking about like self-publishing Prodigy. I've talked about that a lot on pretty much every other social media I have, and yeah, I got a request for a full manuscript yesterday, which is kind of throwing me off my current path in a way. So I don't really know what is going to happen now. I'm not really sure what will be in the future, if this is still going ahead, if this is not going ahead. I put a lot of work into this now, like since I decided that okay, I'm just scrapping the whole publishing traditionally thing and I'm going the self-publication way. And I've done all the typesetting, I've done all the preparations, and I would be ready to go, really. I also recorded a few chapters for the audiobook already, and I'm like on the fence about this now because really trap pop is what I want and what I've been dreaming of my whole life, but still I'm not really sure if I still want this for Prodigy. I'm not 100%
Wow.